Hello and welcome to The Shadow Archives, a chapter by chapter reread and deep dive podcast dedicated 100% to The World of the Blade of Shadows by Sarah Samuels. This is not a full episode. However, this is an introduction to the podcast. My name is Matt, and I will be your gracious host for this journey. What started as an experiment in attempting to gather fans of this book series into one single place has evolved into a full-on series reread, leading up to the final book of the series, Lost Legacy of Time, coming out sometime in the first quarter of 2027. I have gathered fans from across the globe, people that I can now call my friends. We have someone from Australia, Denmark, England, and 3 different parts of the United States, all coming together to talk about a book series that they love. If you are at all interested in rereading the series, hearing about character deep dives, magic system and lore analysis, and reliving all of the action, drama, and spice that made you just have brain explosions, please follow this channel. For now, I would like you to enjoy a very short clip and sneak peek into episode 0, why we love The Blade of Shadows and how we found it. Thank you very much.
I read it when it was actually released in the order that they were actually released. So,
Right on.
Yeah.
and she told me, she goes, hey, I'm going to look for a new set of beta readers because this one can be read either at the very beginning because it's an origin story or at the end where I'm reading it. So I was like, oh, that'll be interesting to kind of hear who reads it first to see how they get hooked into the series. And Shadow Lords, I have a hard time picking out my favorite book because I like different parts of every single book. But Shadow Lords, I think, is probably overall my favorite book right now.
I agree.
Strong opinion.
I
Okay.
agree. And,
Yeah, I
Agree,
and
agree.
I'm
agree,
glad I
agree.
read it. I'm glad I read it when I read it. I think it just has so much more impact. It's like a gut punch after all the other books, just to have this
Mhm.
big
Oh, that's
blow your
interesting.
mind moment.
Because
Blow
I
your
I
mind
think
moment.
that reading Rise of the Shadow Lords kind of first or in the beginning, it makes it this huge world and underlying story and game that you don't get in the books, but you know is there, and it just makes everything so much bigger and a little bit more ominous. And I
Well,
found that to
maybe
be
I'll try when
fascinating.
I do a reread. Maybe I'll try
Do a
and do
reread.
it.
Mm.
Yeah,
Was
well, if I
I was
reread, I'll read it first because now I already
Right
know.
on.
But the fact, yeah.
I
I
told
will
I
say
told
that
Sarah I told Sarah that I want to reread the books in like chronologic order. I want to find that.
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys have seen like with ACOTAR or things like
Yeah.
that, or the entire Mossverse. They'll like you like read book 1, 2, and 3, then go and
Where
read
does
chapters
Assassin's
1
Blade
through
go?
3 of this. Yeah, I want to do that with Blade of Shadows. I
Yeah.
want to try to find the chronological order.
I
Good
will
luck.
say part of the reason that
Can you
Sarah sent me all of the books to kind of give feedback on where I think Raz's Shadow Lord should go is the fun thing. So I was kind of like, and so I got to like email kind of and being like, oh, it could fit in here. It could also fit in here. Underrated spot, I think, would be after the first or second book. I think underrated spot. Then, because personally, I feel like knowing who, sorry, I have to bring her up, but knowing who Amara was, and seeing her after in Rise of the Shadow Lords, knowing a little bit background of her was also so heartbreaking, knowing what originally happened, but then also realizing that in fact Lazarus did bring her back as well. So it's
Multiple times apparently.
yeah, he's just side questing. Bro's just side questing. So it's so like interesting to put it either like after the first book or after the second book, because yes, it is a prologue, but then again, think about it, you know, the Mass first, Sarah J. Maas. I liked reading Assassin's Blade third because you knew what was going to happen, but then you still had to suffer anyways. So in a way, it's a little bit like that, while also finding out, you know, what Time Lords are now. Now you get to see how they're created and kind of the timeline there. So I feel like an underrated spot is after the first or second book because of that. I feel like a little bit later onto the series is when it kind of gets a little bit like, you know, maybe you should have, like, you should definitely read it earlier, just because, like, as much as it could fit in, you kind of want to know the context by the time that around, like, obviously, like, Balthazar is getting his ass kicked, you know, stuff like that. So it's like, you want to read that before you like him again, sort of thing, if that kind of makes sense.
Oh, 100% makes sense. I think,
Yeah.
do you like meeting Lazarus and Salvatore for the first time in Rise of the Shadow Lords, or do you want to wait until like Time Hunters
Mm.
to
It's
like
like,
encounter them for the first time? Which
I
one's
think you should
better?
I want to.
I think you should meet them